the Infernal Labyrinth. It has been 10 years since that incident, but I remember it clearly. It is the most terrifying experience I have ever lived through. It was my last year in the School of Communication, and everything was perfect. Photography and editing were my favorite subjects, and although they demanded a lot of my time, I loved living my childhood dream of becoming a reporter. The final projects were approaching, and one of the ones I was most excited about was for that subject. We had to put into practice everything we had learned during the semester. Honestly, I was great at it. I always had the best grades, but this time, I didn't know what to do my project on. The project was in teams, and we had to make a video documentary about an interesting topic, primarily capturing the essence of a place with a lot of history to tell. My friends and I had thought about an old museum. It was going to be incredible to capture every detail, but at the last minute, the manager told us our proposal had been rejected, so we had to find another place. When I got home, I told my girlfriend about the issue. She thought for a moment, and then mentioned that someone had told her about an abandoned psychiatric hospital on the outskirts of the city, a place with a great history, as it had been the most famous one in the 70s. She loved horror stories, so she knew a lot about such things. To be honest, I wasn't really into that stuff. I was a skeptic, and I found the idea of objects moving on their own, or ghosts, ridiculous. But the idea didn't sound so bad. We could do a report on what had happened there, and film the entire place at night. We would be a sensation, since I doubted anyone else would do something like that. I proposed the idea to my friends, and they agreed. But once again, we had to get permission. My girlfriend asked to come along with us since she was really excited to see the place. I happily agreed, and even told her she could be part of the filming if they allowed us to record, so she could experience it with me. We decided to go the next day after leaving university. It was my 3 friends, Pedro, Juan, and Jorge, my girlfriend, Raquel, and me. It took us a while to get there, and on the way, we planned what to say to get permission. We even brought an official school document to make things easier. After an hour-long drive, we arrived, and honestly, we were surprised at how big the place was. I didn't believe in vibes, but if I had to describe the feeling of that place, I would say it was heavy and terrifying. The hospital was enormous. What had once been white paint was now faded and yellowish. It was 3 stories tall, and the entrance door was gigantic, covered in graffiti, probably from people who sneaked in to vandalize it at night. It looked eerie. The security guard greeted us with suspicion, but after we explained our project, he became friendly. He agreed to let us in and record, as long as we didn't damage the property. However, he warned us that he was not responsible for anything strange that might happen, because weird things happened in that place. He started giving us a tour and told us about the site. When we entered the ground floor, I felt chills run down my spine. The atmosphere was so heavy, and despite it being daytime, it was dark inside, too eerie, even for me. The walls were painted white, but stained with what looked like blood. The reception area had an old computer and telephone, both covered in dust. There were also scattered papers that seemed to be files, and a visitor's book still open, dated September 7th, 1966. He took us to the rooms, which contained only a single bed and a small nightstand. The paint color was different, a dull, depressing green. The walls were covered in scratches, strange drawings, and even recent graffiti. As we climbed the stairs, he told us that the hospital had been shut down in 1970 because lobotomies and terrifying experiments had been conducted on patients who would never leave, as they were left in worse conditions or dead. They experimented with electroshock therapy, locking patients up with their worst fears, depriving them of food, water, or sleep for days or even weeks. Some were exposed to insect bites they were allergic to, while others underwent horrifying brain surgeries. When we reached the second floor, the tension grew. The air was thick with terror and despair. No one said anything, but I'm sure we all felt it. That floor had many more rooms than the first. There were showers, dirty bathrooms, and around 10 consultation rooms with metal stretchers, medicines, and surgical instruments. In these rooms, there were photos of doctors and framed certificates on the walls. We noticed that one doctor's picture was repeated multiple times. When we asked the guard, he told us that man had been the hospital director, the one who had performed the experiments and surgeries. When we reached the second floor, the tension grew. The air was thick with terror and despair. No one said anything, but I'm sure we all felt it. That floor had many more rooms than the first. There were showers, dirty bathrooms, and around 10 consultation rooms with metal stretchers, medicines, and surgical instruments. In these rooms, there were photos of doctors and framed certificates on the walls. We noticed that one doctor's picture was repeated multiple times. When we asked the guard, he told us that man had been the hospital director, the one who had performed the experiments and surgeries. Hospitals like this don't have many windows, he explained, to prevent suicides. There were only 2 large ones, and he told us that every night he would close them, but in the morning they would be open again. At the end of the tour, he said we could return the next day to record. It was his night off, so no one would bother us. He even offered to lend us some mattresses in case we wanted to sleep there. We now had what could be the best report of our academic career, an incredible and terrifying experience. On the way back, we were all excited. We planned what to bring: cameras to install, microphones, and of course, food. The next day, Raquel helped me prepare everything. We were running late since we had gone to the movies and out to eat, so we were in a rush. My friends picked us up, and we left, feeling happy because this project meant we wouldn't have to do social service and would get excellent grades in our favorite subject. We arrived, and the night guard was already waiting for us. It was 11 p.m. He greeted us warmly and was delighted when we gave him the food we had bought for him. He helped us set up the cameras, and I won't deny it. The place looked far more terrifying at night. For a moment, I had the urge to run away, but I didn't want to seem like a coward. Looking back, I regret not leaving, because we all felt the same way. We set everything up, had dinner, and the guard wished us luck before heading home. The place was huge with 1,000 doors. He reminded us that the only entrance and exit was the one covered in graffiti. We started recording and exploring, beginning on the ground floor, narrating what we knew about the hospital. We walked slowly, smiling at the camera. Everything was fine, until we reached the upper floor. There, the air grew heavier. Even with our flashlights, the darkness seemed to swallow the light. The sight of empty beds, blood-stained walls, and surgical instruments was horrifying. Raquel said the energy was terrible. There had been too much suffering, despair, and madness in that place. By 2 a.m., we still had much to explore, but we were exhausted, so we decided to sleep for an hour. We lay on the mattresses, but it was hard to rest with the echoes of strange noises. Eventually, the alarm rang, and we got up, but we felt even more drained. Then, Raoul disappeared. We searched for him, checked the cameras, and saw something impossible. An invisible force had grabbed him and dragged him away. Terrified, we tried to leave, but when we opened the only exit, we found another endless hallway instead of the outside world. The hospital had changed. It had become a labyrinth, and we were trapped.